Monsieur le gouverneur, très très grand merci. Vous avez su mettre si bien en évidence toutes les contradictions, en particulier de votre pays. Le prochain orateur vient également des États-Unis. Son nom nous est familier, c'est le congressman Patrick Kennedy.
Madam Rajadi, earlier this afternoon, we were reminded of the immortal words of your brother-in-law, Kaظم Rajavi, who was quoted in saying, "We are writing the history of human rights with our blood." Madam Rajavi, your family is one of the families that you speak up on behalf of every time you speak out on behalf of the families of the martyred. That quote, tragically, could be applied to your family. You had a sister killed by the Shah fighting for freedom. You had another sister killed by the mullahs. How much does a family have to pay in sacrificing themselves for a cause as important as human rights? Your family has paid an enormous sacrifice. I know we're all honored here today to have you leading the charge on behalf of all people who know the cost of not standing on the side of freedom, because your family has paid the ultimate sacrifice, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I love at these rallies the way you hold up pictures of the martyred, because you remind us what it's all about. It's about real people with real brothers and sisters like many of you and I have, with real mothers and fathers and loved ones. This is an issue that's very simple. I know we have a distinguished panel here to talk about the legal issues. The 4th Geneva Convention, the UN Human Rights, the High Commissioner on Refugees. We hear over and over justifications for the policy that, when you look at it, speaks for itself, because it speaks to all of our hearts as simply a matter of human rights. Because there is nothing that is needed to justify the side of justice in this case. As it is often said, you know it when you see it. And we have seen the issue before us. How could we stand here in the seat of the United Nations in Europe and have to wonder whether we're going to make the case to the High Commissioner on Refugees and Human Rights that they need to act? Of course they need to act. I talked about your family, Madam Rajavi, and I mentioned the martyrs' families because it's an issue of life and death. There's nothing political about this. It's whether we of good conscience are going to sit by and allow people is not simply a crime, tragic as it is, against the people of Camp Ashraf. It's a crime against every human being, wherever they live. That something like this, in the year 2011, can be permitted to go forward under the eyes and the watch and the sanction of the very countries that led the cause of freedom over and over and over again. History is our judge. To Ambassador Butler, I have good company right here. And I sleep well at night with my conscience. Do you? We have an opportunity to make the case very clear. That's why we're all here. Antonio Gutierrez is the commissioner. In my prior life, when I used to be somebody, when I was an elected official, he gave me the highest award as Prime Minister of Portugal. Highest civilian award. Because I traveled to a little-known place called East Timor in Indonesia, where many people of Portuguese descent were being slaughtered at that time by the Indonesian military. Prime Minister Gutierrez, remember when the UN came to the aid of East Timor? Now we need the UN to come to the aid of the people of Camp Ashraf, just as they came to the aid of the people of East Timor. How could the Holocaust have happened? Where were all the people? And Martin Niemöller, the famous Holocaust writer, said first they came for the gypsies, and I was not a gypsy, so I did not speak up. Then they came for the Catholics and the trade unionists, and I was not a trade unionist, so I did not speak up. Then they came for the Jews, and I was not a Jew, so I did not speak up. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up. It doesn't matter what color you are, what part of the world you live in, you are one of God's children, a human being. You have every right to live free of the oppression that is currently being perpetrated by the mullahs in Iran. This last month, if you look at the magazines, they were talking about Berlin, because it was 50 years ago this last month where the wall around Berlin went up. A lot of history has passed since those days, but it was going to be a matter of fate that someday all people in Berlin were going to be united and free. So there is no question that the mullah's days are numbered. There is no question that the regime of Nouri al-Maliki is going to stand in the dustbin of history of brutal dictators like Assad. There's no question where Khomeini and Ahmadinejad stand in the eyes of history. The question is whether we as good people, Ambassador Butler, are going to stand on the right side of history or the wrong side of history. You can't pay me enough money to be on the wrong side